They were conversing about all the things that had occurred. Two disciples, two who had heard him and had decided to follow him, were walking away from tragedy, from disappointment, from dashed dreams, maybe numb from all that had happened, all they had seen, numb from all they had heard in the latest news. What were they talking about? Was it some pious theological conversation filled with words they'd picked up in synagogue school that nobody really understood? Was it trite religious talk with phrases like, God never gives us more than we can handle, or it must have been God's will? Was it conversation that excluded more people than it included? Some effort to soothe their wounded egos and restore their sense of self-righteousness with false us versus them lingo? Or was it more like conversations you and I have had when we found ourselves in the middle of some of life's biggest challenges? Those times when we've been profoundly disappointed, deeply hurt, distraught, completely empty, like the tomb they'd heard about. A diagnosis, a breakup, some self-realization, a death, another offense by an institution that we once trusted. Heck, even watching the downward spiral of humanity displayed to us on the evening news every night. Were they really being honest with each other? Maybe like partners in a healthy relationship are honest and open their hearts to each other in some deep vulnerability. Sharing how what once seemed so real, how someone so worth investing everything in, their time and their talents and their treasures, now seemed like just another false prophet with false promises, more fake news, an empty memory from an empty tomb. How so many bleeding heart fantasies were his teachings on turning the other cheek or feeding the hungry, giving your cloak to one in need. What BS he tried to convince us of in forgiving 70 times 7 times, daring us to cast that first stone toward one caught so clearly in a disgusting sin, practically taunting us with our own sinfulness and need for forgiveness to get us to walk away and tend to our own need for mercy. Who was this? Let's be honest. Were they talking about how they so wanted to believe and who they so wanted to follow seemed at the moment to have been such a disappointment? And then he broke the bread. He represented what he had done on that Maundy Thursday. He showed them, and he sent them. Their eyes were opened. They saw him in the breaking of the bread. They recognized him and they remembered. In that sacrament, in that outward sign, grace was poured out in abundance. Grace to open their eyes, grace to heal them, grace to carry on and to go out, grace to find the others. Grace to tell all they could that in the breaking of the bread they had seen the Lord. grace to say boldly and in their own ways that his words are true, that his promised kingdom is true, that the things of this world that seem so valuable and so important and so worth defending pale in comparison to the things of his kingdom: peace, mercy, compassion, justice, forgiveness. Brothers and sisters, look for him in the breaking of the bread today. And each and every time we accept his invitation to participate in Mass. Look for him when you bask in the good times and the consolations, and look for him in the dark times of desolation and emptiness. Look for him and see him. See that he is alive. See that his words are true and are worth our everything, our time, our talents, our treasure. See in the breaking of the bread that you are sent. See that you are sent out from the comfort of this place to every corner of your world. Sent to share the good news that God indeed raised him up, and that you have seen the Lord in your own story, on your own journey. You've seen him in the breaking of the bread. You've seen him in moments of forgiveness, in times of acceptance, in places where you've stood firm in the face of injustice, when you set aside prejudices and lies to see and accept one another as sisters and brothers and to defend the lowly from harm. See in the breaking of the bread the grace to say enough to the gun violence and to the assaults on the unborn and to the assaults on the earth. See in the breaking of the bread your courage, your strength, your food for the journey this week. See in the breaking of the bread your mandate to serve and so to share the good news that Christ is alive and that he died and rose for all. He was in their midst on the way to Emmaus, and he remains in our midst today, especially when we gather to celebrate the breaking of the bread. He remains with us when we go out from this place to our places to tell the good news in word and deed that Christ is indeed alive.